Right. Oh, because it's right above it.
Okay. All right, thank you everybody for coming to the last weather briefing of the semester, and it's also Rich Grumm's last weather briefing as a National Weather Service employee, so we'll all congratulate him at the end for that, but if you want to take it away, Rich, and talk about some of the lake effect snow.
That's about all we have. So it is the wrap-up weather discussion for the semester. It's an infamous day on many levels. So we had a nice pattern change from warm to cold. You probably noticed. It was a fairly well forecast pattern change. It was kind of somewhat dramatic. We went from pretty nice warm weather to normal to almost below normal weather here all of a sudden. And this mean trough is forecast persistence we'll look at, and we'll talk a little bit about the impacts on winter activities and the potential for a white Christmas. Of course, you live in Georgia or Florida, that might not be worth your time. And we'll look at some of the short-term weather with some of the really great evolving tools that we're seeing. So here is the pattern change we went through. You can see these are about 12Z every day. We start up here on the 2nd of December, and we end here on the 12Z this morning. And you can see it was pretty strong zonal flow implied in the 500 contours, and with above normal heights over Texas and Mexico, where it's actually snowing in Mexico today, which is kind of odd. And obviously there's this with pattern change that took place, and it really went from warm to cold. Most of the southern plains have been extremely warm this autumn, and things have really changed. You can see the blue zone over the time. This is by the 4th and the 5th and the 6th. And finally, by this morning, you can see the below normal heights going from basically Arizona, New Mexico, across Texas, all the way up to our neck of the woods. And a big giant ridge, of course, which always is good to have a trough in the eastern United States over the western United States, and that has implications on fire weather activities and some of the strong winds that we have in California. And this is just the same evolution, except we're focused more on the evolution of the 850 temperatures to see how above normal warm it was down here, the yellow zone, and then a surge of above normal warmth there came through here 2 days ago, although we didn't really kind of realize it at the surface because we were a little colder now when it rained. But now the whole United States, pretty much except the West Coast, is now normal to below normal. It got cold, and places that were experiencing record highs just a week ago are now dealing with snow and wintry weather. So it's a pretty amazing transition here. So this is a forecast from the GEFS showing the 2-meter temperature forecasts over the last, this was for yesterday, for the last almost a week. Go back to the 28th of November showing what the temperatures supposed to be like yesterday. And you can see the red line is the mean. You can see there was a big spread in the temperatures, pretty big spread in the temperatures. Then it said, oh, the temperature's going to come up. And then around December 2nd, the models kind of honed in, and it was going to get dramatically colder. The forecast got relatively consistent, and we cooled off. Really, this is 2-meter temperatures yesterday morning. So, and I think I woke up yesterday morning like 28 degrees. 0 is not a bad forecast for 2-meter temperature. But beyond about 102 hours, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I guess this pattern change was in the GFS forecast, but there was some timing issues. But this kind of showed it quite clearly. And once you got within about 4 days, it was a pretty well predicted event. So this is what the GFS bias predicted pattern looks like. This is this morning. You can see the huge ridge over the northwest United States and southwest Canada, which is always a good pattern to get northerly flow into the plains into the eastern United States, which usually means we kind of get cool. There's another ridge out over Greenland, which if it was a little bit stronger and blocking, I think a little bit further west, maybe the snow crows will start preening their feathers. And then if we look at 850, we get to see the same thing. We see the really warm temperatures off the California coast, and this blob of really cold air, and this 2 sigma below normal cold air that goes all the way to Mexico, again, where it's snowing. And this is what it's supposed to look like in the world, never world. This is just the GEFS, but the NAICS, which has 21 official members, looks very similar. There's a mean trough still with this big closed polar vortex, if you will, over Hudson's Bay. And so we're going to be in a mean trough at least through the 22nd and beyond, because you can see up here there's clearly cross-polar flow in Alaska and northwest Canada. And at 850, probably due to uncertainty issues more than it's going to be warmer, normal or cold, is we're basically about -4 to -8 at 850. We're still going to be chilly here just before Christmas and beyond. So if we do pick up any snow between now and this image, we would probably not lose it if it was more than an inch or two. So the left panel shows the best chance of, this is the best chance of snow for us in the next 7 days or so. This is next Wednesday, Tuesday to Wednesday next week. We have a deepening slug of cold air, nice injection of cold air at 850, and a deep trough going to come over us, and it's going to create at the surface on the other side. This is the GEFS forecast of 21 members showing a storm kind of like over Long Island, southern New England. And we're not in a great position for a snowstorm in the ensembles, but it's our best hope for snow, as we'll see, as we get this reinforcing air mass coming in. Depending, if this thing digs a little further south, maybe it's optimistic, but it's our only real hope to talk about snow. So here's the plume diagrams from the GFS Fourth State College. You can see right around the 12th and 13th, there are about maybe a quarter of the members indicating that sometime in the Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe next week, we could see some snow. But if you look at the in the mean, it looks like the real amounts are down like in a few tenths, maybe a tenth of an inch of liquid. So our best chance for measurable snow, maybe our first inch of snow, if you were doing a bet, will probably be next Tuesday or Wednesday, be a fairly reasonable estimate. I would say that these 0.8, 0.6, 0.7 inch numbers are probably outliers. It would take a miracle, I think, for us to get like a really big snowstorm, but it could happen. And if we look over here at the temperature trend, you can see it's kind of a bear market for temperatures. The cyan line is the 32-degree line. You see, we're just going to basically trend colder. We're going to have a period of time where we might not go above freezing for a considerable amount of time. And I'm not very optimistic about temperatures going much below 10 degrees this time of year without snow cover, but it looks like we're in for a relatively cold period. And you can also see right around here, right around the 12th, 13th, when that big wave is supposed to develop, there's a lot of spread. So how intense this next cold air mass is going to be next week, and the trough axis and the cold air behind it, there's a lot of uncertainty. But one thing, all the ensemble members agree on, it's going to get cold, and it's going to get colder than it is now. So if you ski, anybody here ski? They'll be able to make snow, and then and they'll be able to keep it. And if it snows here, like next week, we should be able to keep the snow. And if you like to bicycle or do things outside, you're going to have to get used to the fact that it's going to be cold. So the medium range summary, we're kind of in a new pattern. It's a mean trough. Most of us would prefer a nice trough over a mean one, I suspect. But it's a good forecast to persist. It's probably going to last 2 weeks. And if you look at the CFS, it looks like it goes into January. So the best chance of snow at this time is with this reinforcing cold air mass kind of on the middle of next week. This hints of pattern can persist into January. But overall, to me, it looks like one of these cold and dusty kind of patterns, not exactly a really wet pattern. So it'd be tough to get a big storm potentially. This just shows a situational awareness table, and you can see the blue zone in the temperature column, and in the height column says we're supposed to be persistently below normal for our 500 millibar heights, and all of our heights in general, and our temperatures through the next week or so. And this shows the precipitation in our region for the next week or so, and you can see that there's some actually high potential precipitation, really anomalous precipitation, but it's unless you're spearing white whales off the coast of Virginia, it's not. Anyway, the short-term forecast has been relatively dry locally. We had a good rain 2 days ago, at about 5,300 or so. We have some really great tools that are evolving to look at this nowadays. We have the HREF-V2. Anybody using the HREF-V2? And the NCAR ensemble is going away, but there's a lot of changes going on in mesoscale forecasting. And I guess in 2 to 3 years, NCEP's supposed to implement a regional version, about a 3-kilometer version of the FV3, which is going to be the new core of the GFS, I guess, probably by the end of end of 2018. And then I guess it'll be the core of the GEFS probably by 2019. So everybody's heard of the FV3? So here's the general pattern. I salute general pattern to go.
I'm gonna have to close that.
No, it's going to do it. It could do it. I actually had these open. Ask me later. So this link here is this is the HREF-V2, and it's showing the probability of 12 inch in a 12-hour period of 4 inches of snow or greater. And you can see there's a really high probability of some good lake effect snow, but it's basically outside of the State College offices, county warning area. But they're forecasting a pretty high probability. It's down in the 80 to 90% chance of 4 inches of snow off Lake Erie, but mainly kind of in the I-90 corridor up towards Buffalo and out of our area. If there's any ski resorts up there, maybe they'll get some snow. And then if we go to the next period, the snow kind of diminishes and becomes a Tug Hill Plateau kind of thing, and then it just kind of diminishes by Saturday. So this is a good lake effect snow pattern, but it's southwest flow, so it kind of stays out of the state of Pennsylvania. So if we go for winter weather, we go for the probability of greater than an inch of snow. Start at the beginning, and you can see most of the probability of an inch of snow is located over the lake effect, southwest flow lake effect areas of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. There's at times tonight, you can, I couldn't get the radar pop up on here, but you can see when the radar was on the big screen, there's like a little wave coming by, and I guess you can see Bergen when you're outside. I looked, I didn't even see it reporting snow at Johnstown, but clearly there's a wave coming by, but it's really weak, and it's really dry in the boundary layer. But we could have some flurries coming by us, and if you look at this guidance here at times, you can see that it's showing at the 30 to 40% chance of some patches of light snow, mainly in the Laurels, but there's no significant snow with this event with us, just cold. If you want to see some snow, you have to drive to Erie, I guess, or Buffalo area. So I don't know if anybody's been using this page, but it's got a lot of little nice products on it, but it's just evolving. This is all href v2 based data. The last one. And I just, the forages didn't really show anything. So we'll go to the HER. You're in a hurry, it doesn't load fast. There actually is a model run called the HER. Everybody ever heard of the Hurry? The HER ensemble, and then the hurdle. You know, you usually see hurdles on track and field events, but the GSD has a time lag TLE hurdle. So here's the pattern over the United States. That's really the name. It's the HER-TLE hurdle. So you have to jump over hurdles to find it. So you can see that the HER is showing the same thing as the ensemble, that all the precipitation is kind of focused up along the Great Lakes. We're just kind of like reinforcing, cold air flow, kind of westerly flow. I guess the real weather maker, if you're interested, is there's this band of rain and potential snow at times on the northern edge headed to the deep south. So they went from really warm to chilly and cold. So the real fun weather is to our south, the P-type. I love getting all my glasses on like that. I don't see the precipitation type on those. Go back one now. Here's the P-type. Mostly rain, the snow doesn't get down there yet. But I guess if you go to the U.S. scale in Mexico, it's but most of the snow is confined to the lake effect areas because there's not enough moisture in this thing to snow. It's showing snow, and the precipitation I'll zoom in for us. Accumulated precipitation is all kind of focused, as you would imagine, in the lakes, with some light patchy flurries in the Laurel Highlands, indicating they could have maybe some dusting of snow or some light snow in the mountains. The real significant QPF in the HER, with over 3/4 of an inch of liquid, is actually to the Lake Erie. So I had a tail with a satellite image on it. That was going when we started. So I can find that. Oh. I may have to go like this. I got it. Oh, I had it. Here. So you can see, there's a satellite picture. You can see that little weak wave that's kind of moisture storm coming over us. You see this streaky white clouds, of course, coming off Lake Erie into New York State. And then this big, huge baroclinic zone where that cold air is really pushed south. That's producing the precipitation from Mexico across the southern United States. And I guess as the cold air filters in, the northern edge of that will turn to snow. So in summary, we're now in a persistent cold pattern. If we can get a clipper or low, or that low develops at the coast next week, we have a chance of seeing some snow. I wouldn't rule out our first inch of snow by the middle part of next week, which would be about a month earlier than last year, this past winter. We waited for the second week of January last year. So it's good for ski. The pattern's good to make snow. And if we can get snow, we can keep snow. So it should be cold through Christmas probably, and hopefully, since the pattern is generally dry, if you're traveling hot places after finals and the travel weather should be generally good. Just avoid traveling next Tuesday and Wednesday. And but that could change too. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get a nice storm. Any questions? Any answers? So Paul's next with the chilling winter forecast.
Well, I'm not going to do that far ahead. We'll get yeah. We'll take a look back because we had an unusual situation that occurred in October and November in the northeastern U.S. And that is October was well above seasonal levels, temperature-wise, in the Northeast, and November was moderately below normal. So I wanted to see what are the how often that happens. So we look back at the climate at a glance and took a look at Pennsylvania specifically. I guess I could have done a broader region. And these are the years that had Octobers that were warm like the one we just had. And these are the years that had Novembers that were cool. Now the November data hadn't been in for 2017, so you're saying how come that's not in there? Because I did this a few days ago and the data had not yet come in. So there have been, not quite a handful of occasions, I guess exactly a handful, you have 5 fingers on your hand, where there have been warm Octobers followed by cold Novembers. And those are the years 1914, 1920, 47, 2013, and 2014. So surprisingly, it happened back-to-back years, not that long ago. And then this is what the December temperature departure was in this column, and the December precipitation departure. Now, I'm also have a vested interest in this because Ben made a pretty bold long shot back in, was it in September, October? September, yeah, where he predicted that it would be essentially cold and snowy in December. Is that a fair? Yeah, I mean, I know there's
fair summary.
There's some criteria to that. So I've been kind of rooting for that because it'd be kind of fun to see that happen. That's a true long shot. But you can see that in the 5 other occasions where this has occurred, only 2 of those years have had colder than average Decembers in Pennsylvania. One was 1914, the other one was 1974. And the others were relatively mild, 1.8 above, 1.9, and of course in 2014 it was 5.1 above. So there's a risk that things could flip. And precipitation-wise, it's all over the map really. This was a cold, snowy winter, so 1914 would be a great analog for Ben's long shot. This was cold, and we were 1.39 inches above normal. But the other years, here's the other cold one, which was 47, was almost 1.5 inches below normal. So it was what Rich was talking about, cold and dusty, or cool and dusty, I guess. And when it was so warm, in 2014, it was also right near normal precipitation. So there's not a lot to be gained by saying, in the short range, looking at the analogs that we can say about that. So I thought, well, let's look back, and we dug into the records here for State College and to see what has been like here on Christmas Day. These are Christmas Day odds card, which is kind of Christmas Eve to some degree.
The morning.
Morning, yeah.
Snow on the ground.
Yeah, so we can see the snow on the ground, and we can also see the temperatures. And in the past 17 years of Christmas morning, there's only been 3 or 4 occasions that have been pretty cold. So it's not often that we're cold, and of course we've had some balmy ones, like in 2015 when it was 63, and actually I remember grilling on Christmas Eve. But you can see the occasions of snow on the ground, snow depth. Other than for, of course, the one in 2002 that doesn't show up is it was snowing like crazy that morning. So we only had 2 inches on the ground, and we had, but it snowed most of that morning, and we ended up, I think, with about 6 or something to that effect. So that was the last time there really had been legitimately a snowstorm on Christmas Day. The last time we actually had an inch of snow on the ground on Christmas was in 2012, when we had a fairly chilly day, and there was an inch of snow that fall the day before. So it's not all that frequent that we get an inch of snow on Christmas. So I took what Rich was doing, and I went and looked at the actual operational runs. This is from the 60 run, Rich, that looks at the 384-hour fantasy world, as we call it. This has nothing to do with reality, but it's fun to look at anyway. And there is that same pattern that Rich was talking to us about, is that there's definitely a trough. This looks like it's a little bit closer to mid-continent than necessarily over the eastern part of North America. But we have a parade of disturbances coming into the northwest flow and amplifying in the long-wave trough position. Somewhere it looks like it's around 85, maybe I should say more like 90, 95 west. And of course, that would leave us on the business side of the trough, if indeed this were to be correct, with a potential series of waves coming out of the Gulf and high pressure trying to build to the north. So it's certainly not out of the question that we're in a pattern that could favor a wave overrunning the cold air mass that would be in place. Now, this is from my colleagues at Prescient Weather, who I collaborate with, and they've been working a fair bit on subseasonal forecasting, because certainly in the energy industry and even in the agricultural industry, skill levels in weeks 2, 3, and 4, even beyond that 5, have an enormous amount of value. Whether there's any true skill remains to be seen, but there's Richard James and Jeremy Ross, of course, John Dutton have a lot of brain power being put into this, and then they like to see whether I can make any sense of it for them. But we looked at this is the ECMWF forecast. This is from 2 days ago, that looked at the period from December 25th? Yeah, through the 31st. This is the last week of the month, and these are the temperature anomalies. We're looking at probabilities based upon the ensemble, and this is the CFS. And when you look at it, they're remarkably similar, which is not always the case. Subseasonal forecasts oftentimes show a fairly big spread in terms of probabilities, but they both indicate that Eastern North America would be below average temperatures. This is now, we're talking 3 weeks plus out. And that would be an interesting scenario. So I read this in terms of the fact that notice that the chill, in some cases it has retreated all the way up into Hudson Bay. Other cases it's over Ontario and Quebec. But either way, it would appear that the and by the way, this sort of information, the subseasonal forecast, is updated several times a week. So looking at the trends over a period of time, this has been consistent. So this is not something that's just a snapshot, and then tomorrow we'll look at it and say, oh, it's all warm again. No, this has actually been for about 2 weeks, showing that there's a high probability of cold remaining in the Northeast. So, but it does also look like, of course, these are the probabilities at 3 weeks, so they're going to be lower than you would expect in the short range. But it looks to me like a retreating chill. And honestly, actually, retreating chill is a fairly good thing, because when cold retreats, it has to be overrun by warmer, moist air, and that's when precipitation occurs. The problem that we have right now, as Rich was pointing out, is that we're still digging into the cold air. And of course, the cold air, every time it digs, it's pushing the baroclinic zone farther away from us, so that there's little opportunity to get deep moisture in. But as the cold retreats, there's opportunity for the air to glide up over the isotopes and come in and produce a fair bit of clouds and precipitation. So it looks like a retreating chill. And then as Rich pointed out, if we have any residual snow cover, and I think the odds are relatively high, given our previous winters and certainly previous Decembers, that we will get an inch of snow perhaps between now and Christmas that should stay on the ground. And even if the pattern remains deeply entrenched with a trough in the east rather than moving out, we could have clippers, and these clipper systems that come in from the northwest could also produce a quick half-inch or inch of snow. So below average temperature seems pretty likely, and it seems to me that we have at least a 50% chance of an inch of snow on the ground from Christmas Day. So that's, I think this is a good a chance that I've seen in a long time. Too bad I'll be in Colorado, but where it's going to be, you know, one of the warmer times, recent times. So, but I also wanted to take just a few minutes to do a little bit of a tribute to our science operations officer here, who is going to be, I don't know whether, they don't call him emeritus, do they, in the Weather Service? You just kind of, you step out the door. But if they called him emeritus, then we would put an E at the end, so he'd be named Suey. Sweet. Anyway. Now, there are four fingers on this. A rock group named Grumm that I put a second M on, which is nearly 4 decades. Of course, it's really a solid 3.5 decades of contributions to operational meteorology. Rich has taught classes. The most memorable I remember, because we've had a lot of them we've taught together, Rich, was he was actually deployed in Kosovo. This is what, 2005? 2003, okay. Time flies, we have that much fun. And he actually, we were able to link up with him, and he lectured to the class. I guess it was a mesoscale forecasting class or something to that effect. And it was pretty neat to be able to have an interaction where Rich taught a class from somewhere in Kosovo while we were here listening to him. And I don't know, what was the time difference? About 7 hours? Or 6 hours? Yeah. So fortunately, it worked out for him, and he was able to skip dinner or something to that effect. He has written numerous papers that he co-authored with so many of our different faculty and students. He has mentored and had mentor projects with a countless number of students here, and as well as working with faculty too, and has presented at conferences, including many Penn Staters in that. And I consider Rich a personal friend, but I hereby declare that he is a true friend of Penn State. And we have been honored to have him leading these discussions, as well as the fact that he has done an enormous amount for our department, and has just been a real shining star in terms of the work that he's done with us and for us. So, Rich, congratulations. And now he joins the underemployed, as we're calling.
And Paul, if I might add, on behalf of the department, Rich, we have a small token of our appreciation to you for all you've done, and it certainly doesn't represent that 35 years appropriately, but we hope you feel the love, because we really have appreciated it.
It's been phenomenal.
And we hope it doesn't end.
Me too.
You gonna be around?
Yes.
Okay.
I live here. That's the best place in America to live, if you ask me.
Even if you are 7% above the mean in
You
terms
know,
of cost of living.
7% above the national average to live here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments? Of course.
Rich, we have one more thing
Oh.
for you.
You're eating it all before you leave.
We all get cake now.
Surprise.
And as well as the cake, the Campus Weather Service has a small gift for you as well.
It's not breaking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I just want to say also thank you for coming to the weather briefings this semester. This is the last one I'm running. Next semester, the next president of Campus Weather Service, Jake Rowe, will be taking over. So all of you that like to give them, you'll be going through Jake to plan those next semester.
Looking forward to it.
So let's have cake.
Thank you.